Hello and welcome to Broken Entertainment. So, normally on Sundays I do a writing video, kind of chill out after the week and talk about something everybody who does writing or reads or what have you is interested in and have a good time. But after I saw what Star Wars official Twitter did and this person they hired and how they behaved, I had to say something. And so initially I recorded a reaction video where I just kind of read the tweets and I'm like, man, I can't even believe this happened. But now I want to do something different. I'm not going to do that video. I want to talk to Disney. And I know I don't have any contact at Disney or anything, but here's the thing. Disney. You are a company that has brought a huge amount of joy to people all over the world for decades. And those children grow up and they have kids and they take their kids and their kids love the movies. And they have kids and they take their kids and their kids love the movies. And they go to the parks and they spend money. And you inspire people. Or at least you did. Anymore, you're not really the company you were. And we're going to document some of that today. Because you used to be something people could look up to. You used to be a company that made everybody happy. That, man, a new Disney movie would come out and kids would run to see it. And their parents would take them because they remembered running to see it when they were a kid. And you made wonderful art. Mulan, the original, not the crappy remake. Pocahontas. Moana. Just to name more recent ones compared to the originals. But the originals too, of course. Beauty and the Beast. Snow White. DuckTales. What have you. You can name all kinds of them. But when they grow up, it's like you've lost the desire to keep them. You don't care anymore once they grow up. You want their parents' money, but you only want the kids' parents' money in regards to children's things. When you buy a franchise like Star Wars, you have the opportunity to take a whole lot of people you used to make happy and give them a taste of that again. Where you could have made wonderful Star Wars movies, wonderful TV shows. And in one essence, you have The Mandalorian. It's a great show. But you've been so focused on agenda, so focused on ideology, that you've ruined the franchise that was entrusted to you, and you've divided the fan base, and you've turned people who were happy into people who are very upset. Because Star Wars was something to them. To you, it's a cash cow. To you, it's space wizards. But to the people who grew up on Star Wars, be it the original trilogy, be it the prequel trilogy or the cartoons, to those people it was time with their parents. It was hope. It was something to look up to in a world that didn't always make any sense. And to those people, Star Wars was more than science fantasy. Just like Star Trek has inspired people to become scientists, just like other franchises have inspired people, Star Wars lifted people up. And you've taken that and you've pissed all over it because you have an ideology to uphold. You don't care. And it shows. And it shows more and more, but it's been showing for a long time. And it's sad. Because a company that has meant so much to so many people has gone from lifting people up to shoving people back down to dividing people based on race, based on gender, based on sexuality. You've gone from a company that made people happy and made kids happy and gave people a little bit of magic in their lives, and you've turned into politicians. No one turns to a politician and they go, "Oh, thank God you're here. You really inspire me. You lifted me up. You made me feel better. You made me feel like the world made sense." Because politicians are paid to divide people. And that's what you do now. And when The Mandalorian came out and Luke Skywalker showed up on screen, everybody forgot about that for 5 minutes. Everybody said, wait a minute. Maybe they get it. Maybe Disney has come back a little bit. Maybe they have heard us and they want to move forward and unify again. And one of your people, whose name I will not mention, came out and insulted a fan on Twitter. And people said, well, that's one guy. But we still have The Mandalorian that showed us what you could do, that made people think you did come back. And the High Republic came out, and people were like, yeah, but that's just Kathleen Kennedy. And maybe it'll get better. And then this happened. And you showed us who you really are. You're the politician. You're the divider. You're the person that would rather push people down than lift people up because their skin color and their ideology and their gender doesn't line up. You would rather take a fan base, cut out a section of it because you don't really like the way they look. You would rather tell people they're horrible because of the color of their skin. Or because maybe their politics are different from yours. Than lift people up. And it's sickening. And it's sickening because it's all over our entertainment. Brie Larson tells people, I don't need a bunch of white people telling me what they think about this movie. She happens to be white, but, you know, details. Terminator kills John Connor because he's a white male and they wanted a person of color who happened to be a woman. Comics full of agenda-driven bullshit. To the point that people are turning away from American comics at numbers never seen before. And they're turning to anime. They're turning to indie comics. They're turning to little tiny studios like Boom. And we watch our movies and they lecture us. We watch TV and it lectures us. And we watch cartoons and they lecture us. And we read books and they lecture us. And we read comics and they lecture us. And we turn to the old stuff because there's nothing left. At least that's the way it feels. It feels like there's just nothing left. Everything has become politics and agenda. Star Trek, Star Wars, Game of Thrones. The list goes on and on. DC, Marvel, Batman, Iron Man, Thor, Terminator, Aliens probably next. Lord of the Rings might be next. Quite frankly, we're all sick of it. And people thought just for 1 minute, oh my God, they get it. But you don't. And you proved that. And you showed us who you are. You took the mask off again. You reminded us of what you become rather than what you were. Rather than the company that lifted people up, you become the company that goes to communist China and films a movie. And thanks to people that run concentration camps that kill millions of Muslims. You have fallen farther than anyone in the history of the human race. No one has fallen this far. Because everybody that falls like this starts out a little bit bad somewhere. But not you. Disney started out wonderful. So let's get into these tweets. You hired this woman, Christina Ariel. I apologize if I say the last name wrong. Who is a massive flaming racist. And if you don't believe me, let's go over it. These are her actual tweets. White people, fucking stop it. Your racism won't save you. Your ignorance is not an excuse. White conservatives, please stop invoking racism like you give a shit. You don't. You just want to be able to say, what about, when someone calls out 45 and his blatant racism. Just a reminder, white women are just as complicit in the upholding and enforcing of white supremacy. I don't have an ego. I am also not a bully. I have said repeatedly I don't owe white people a conversation about racism. I have been living with it. They have been doling it out. I am not entering a conversation where people are intent on not understanding me. Oh no, we understand you. There's more, but we won't go into all of them. And the people defending this person are saying, well, but she didn't really mean all white people. She just meant the racist ones. But see, language is a funny thing. It's a weapon. It can be wielded with a fantastic precision, or it can be a nuclear bomb. And you can be ultra specific. So specific in the English language that you can be completely clear and not at all misunderstood. But you're not pointing to specific people. You're not pointing and saying, man, when some white people do this, you're saying, let's go back. Let's look at it. White people. White conservatives. That's at least a little more specific. White women. White people. White people is everybody who's white. White women is every woman who is white. Either this woman has no comprehension of how to use the English language, or she's racist. Those are your options. This is not a misunderstanding. It reminds me of when I was on Twitter and people would post about men not being able to write women. And they would talk about example after stupid example of poorly described women in books. And they'd say, hashtag men writing women. And then you'd say, well, but not all men are like that. And they'd say, they would roll their eyes digitally and say, well, of course, hashtag not all men. No, but see, you didn't say specific subgroups. You said men. And in this case, you didn't say specific subgroups. You said white people. You either need to learn the language that you clearly don't understand, or you're racist. Because that's racism. And you know how you can tell? You don't need a dictionary. Take the word white out and put in black. And tell me how that sounds. It sounds pretty bad. That's racism. It's hatred of a group of people based on their skin color. And it's divisive. Obviously. And here's where you get into trouble, Disney. Because you hired this person, and it's like, okay. They have these opinions. They're allowed to have opinions. I'm not one to call for people to be fired for having their opinions. In fact, it's one of the worst things about Twitter. I would have simply not watched. Very easy. But no. You say, oh, and before we go on, let's not forget the author you hired that told people who don't agree with her politics not to buy their books. But let's go on. You said on Twitter, on your official Star Wars account, our Star Wars community is one of hope and inclusivity. We do not stand for bullying and racism. We support Christina. Do you see the problem? This person came out and said these things. Whatever. Who cares? But then you say you support her, which means by default and the use of the English language, you support this tweet and this tweet and this tweet and every other tweet on the subject. Because you didn't say you support her ability to have free speech. You said you support her. You didn't address it. You didn't say this person has controversial opinions that don't necessarily fall in line with our company policy and beliefs, as many companies do. You said, our Star Wars community is one of hope. It used to be. And inclusivity. It isn't. We do not stand for bullying and racism. You do. We support Christina. There it is. And it's the kind of thing that yesterday when I saw it, I sat down and I couldn't talk. Because I'm like, how can this be? This is Disney. But let's look at the record. We're going to go back a couple years. Okay. Let's go over to this side of the screen. These are from 2018. From various people that work for you. Chuck Wendig. It's hilarious and sad that we let the noisiest anti-The Last Jedi folks define the reaction to The Last Jedi. With its box office success and its high cinema score, that means the backlash is loud but minimal. It's like 6 shitty guys in a room. Okay? Let's move on. Rian Johnson in an interview. One of the things that surprised a lot of people about this film is the way you approach some of the mysteries that J.J. Abrams created in the previous film. I believe the term is that there were a lot of fanboy tears about what you decided to do. He laughs. Delicious fanboy tears. And again, Rian Johnson. Fuck, I'm sorry, man. I'm like King Midas, but with the @replies from PP bots and maladjusted man babies. Let's go on. Brian, I can't see whatever you're replying to, but I'm guessing the advice don't feed the man babies might be handy. Don't feed the man babies. What we talk about when we talk about man babies. Rebels voice actor Freddie Prinze Jr. I just read a tweet to Pablo Hidalgo complaining about young Solo not looking or sounding like Harrison Ford. You need a raise, Pablo. Do we begin to see where we're going with this? I hear you. The only opinions that don't count are the ones offended by the tweet. The ones who feel it's their job to protect art they don't own. It's a working business model. It won't change ever. Oh, I was laughing at the debates these dorks on Twitter have about Star Wars. Yeah, man, they don't use Twitter to bait. They don't use Twitter to debate, only to berate. They aren't fans, they're fanatics. saw my timeline fill up with silly Star Wars nonsense last, so I shat upon them whilst pirating. These are just some examples of what you have allowed people to do in your name. Now, I sat there and I'm like, it's all ruined. Not just Star Wars, it's all gone. Everything mainstream is garbage. And then somebody reminded me, indirectly and unknowingly, that isn't true. There are franchises that still work. There are people who still care. In Disney, I want to show you what somebody that used to work for you until they died as a part of Star Wars, what they did. Instead of shitting on people and calling them man babies. Instead of saying white people are racist. I want to show you, through this person's actions, what you were. What you could have been. And what Star Wars means to people. And why so many people are mad. This is about Kathleen Chassie, who had an illness that was destroying her lungs. Cystic fibrosis. Terrible, terrible disease. Can cause severe damage to the lungs, digestive system, and other organs. When her lungs were shutting down, doctors in her home state of Texas put her on the artificial lung. Time was running out. We were planning her funeral, her mother said. The 24-year-old, that's terrible. 24-year-old's only hope was a lung transplant, but every hospital she approached turned her down because they said her case was too risky. Everybody needs a chance, and I needed a chance. Her parents refused to give up and reached out to Peter Mayhew, Chewie, who played Chewbacca in the Star Wars movies. He is also a Texas resident. The Chassies befriended Mayhew at a Star Wars convention when Kathleen was a small child. Now let's stop a minute. Here's a man who's an actor, played in Star Wars, and he meets a child at a convention, and he takes his time, treats her and her family with respect, and does the things that you want someone your child looks up to do. And he has a picture of him standing next to Mayhew, smiling. He immediately took to social media, where all these people are located, to plead for any hospital to take a chance on his young friend he called the littlest Wookiee. That night, a website went live. Tweets went out. Facebook messages went out. It was surreal, Miss Chassie recalled. I am sorry, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this guy's name. Abbas, I don't know the last name. A cardiothoracic surgeon at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. He agreed. He heard Chewbacca's roar and agreed to do the surgery. We felt it was our duty and obligation to provide her with that therapy. This man didn't say anything negative online to anybody. He just went out and saved somebody's life. That's the Disney I remember. Not this. And when I saw that and I remembered it, I was like, that's what you could have been. But he's not the only one who's still out there doing good things, or was. I don't know why this is. Jason David Frank, known as Tommy Oliver, if you've watched Power Rangers. When COVID hit, he created a program called the Power Rangers Protection Program. And he goes to comic shops all over the southern United States. And he shows up and he gives out tickets to anyone who wants one for free. He signs autographs, he takes pictures, spends time with people individually one-on-one, and he gives any and all money to the shop. While DC and Marvel are pissing all over comic book shops, this guy, Disney, is out there trying to save them one at a time in any way that he can. So let's get into this. So he calls this comic book shop out of the blue and says, "Hey, I want to show up and help you out." The guy says, "Absolutely. I mean, who wouldn't?" Frank loved comics. He says, "I started a comic collection when I was young. Actually sold that comic book collection when I was 18 to buy my first karate school." Now think about the comics that had to be in that collection to buy a frickin' karate school. So comics were my way to become an entrepreneur. He created the Power Ranger Protection Program to help comic shops by bringing in people to see him. And he's not the only one. He went out and he contacted other former Power Rangers actors and he said, "Hey, do this in your area." Make sure all events are safe by enforcing social distancing. The way it works is you come up and you'll just get a number. And then you'll get a 10-minute alert and, "Hey, it's time to go meet Jason David Frank." Lets people in, takes pictures with them, spends time with them, talks face to face. He says, "The vibe between me and you right now is 6 feet apart. I can feel it. It's like instruments coming together and feeling the energy." That is how you show respect. Disney, this is what you were. But it's not what you are. And it sucks. Why can't you... I'm not saying go out and fire people. I'm not saying we need to get a big hit parade out on this person on Twitter and go after him. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, why can't we just lift people up? I'm not asking you to save lives. I'm asking you to treat people with respect and dignity and to lift up your fans and unite them in a world where people feel increasingly divided. I'm asking you to make good entertainment and to do everything it takes to treat your fans well. Jason David Frank does this on his own time. Mayhew did that on his own time. I'm asking you to take agenda, to take all this ideological garbage and throw it away. Let it go. If you want to do that politically on your own time, go do it. It's okay. But as a company, lift people up. Supporting somebody saying all white people are racist is not lifting people up. It's dividing them. It's saying, here's a chunk of our fan base. By the way, it's a very large chunk. And saying we don't need to respect them. They've paid their money. See, and that's the worst thing. You're going after this ideological stuff. You're trying to put more of the most fake diversity in world history into something, and you don't actually believe in any of it. Because if you did, you wouldn't talk about it. You'd just go out and do it. You wouldn't parade all around social media. Oh, look at us. We hired this person. They're a woman and their color is this and their sexuality is this. You wouldn't say those things. You would simply hire them and thank them for amazing work and thank them publicly. And people would go, wow, what a great director. Or they'd go, wow, what a great actor or actress. Or they'd go, wow, what an awesome character. Because you don't have to look that far back. Let's take Moana. Everybody in there is a quote-unquote person of color. And it is probably your last great movie. It's entertaining. It's not filled with ideology. It is a strong female character that you're always talking about. But you didn't talk about it that much back then. You just did it. And it has a strong male character that helps the strong female character. They work together to overcome. You could be great. You could be the gods of entertainment. You could take Star Wars and lift people up and inspire them in ways rarely seen. You could be like Jason David Frank and like Mayhew. But you would rather be a politician. That sucks. So if you're not Disney and you like this video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.